We are
Hello.
live, Lisa.
Awesome! Finally, hi everybody. Welcome to our live session, leadership live, and what keeps us going.
And we should
So
probably
thank you
say
for
why we're
those.
laughing. We should tell everyone why we're laughing, Lisa.
Yes. Ash and I was actually talking for 10 minutes, thinking that the live session is actually on live while we haven't clicked the button. So please bear with us. I know last 2 weeks ago we went on live and then we didn't go ahead because there was problem from my end with the microphones. Um, so thank you for all the patience and thank
But
you
we're
for
here.
listening in today.
We're here.
Yes, we're here.
And the first
Okay,
lesson,
so
the first lesson today is perseverance and patience.
yes, and have some fun along the way as well.
Take it away, Lisa.
so thanks everyone for joining. So for those who don't know me, my name is Lisa Lau. I've spent over 20 years as a tax professional, worked with some of the largest organization around the world, leading teams around APAC. What I realized was that technical skills alone is not enough. So what I did last year was I started Elite Without Leadership, hoping to help people, senior tax or finance professional, to become the leader that they're capable of being. So today we've got Ash. Ash and I have known each other for about 4 or 5 months now through Substack. So Ash, I'll pass it to you. If you can introduce yourself, that'll be
Yeah,
awesome.
thanks,
Thank you.
Lisa. Yeah, look, I have spent probably about 25 years in financial services, generally in senior leadership positions, leading high volume operations. Spent about 20 years in retail banking here in Australia. And in recent years have dabbled in travel insurance and general insurance. And like yourself, I'm fascinated by the intersection of leadership, life, and emotional intelligence, and
Mhm.
that's what I write about on Substack at Live Well, Lead Better.
Awesome. Thank you, Ash. So obviously, as mentioned, Ash and I know each other through Substack, and both of us are very passionate about leadership. Um, Personally, I think leadership skills is something that is very important because it's not something that you just keep in your workplace. It comes with you everywhere you go. So thank you, Ash, for the opportunity for having this chat with me today. So, in your view, Ash, what actually makes a great leader?
I feel like you asked me this question about 5 minutes ago, Lisa, but
Yeah,
um,
I sure
just
did.
kidding. Um, Look, I think the first thing I'd say is I certainly don't consider myself a great leader. I consider myself more of an observationalist. And what I mean by that is I get great fascination from looking at leaders both historically and today and understanding what made them great leaders. If I was to sort of
Yeah.
pick out three things that I think make a great leader, I'd probably say self awareness is critical. I'd say that
Yep.
the ability to bring clarity, particularly in times of um, high stress or crisis. And then the final thing I would say would probably be a great leader is someone who is able to care about their people while holding high standards. So if
Yep.
we pick that apart just a little bit, um, self awareness, we talk about it as being a critical thing for leadership, but I think self awareness is kind of critical for personal growth as well. It doesn't matter whether you're a leader or not.
Yep.
Self awareness is looking at your shortcomings, your gaps, your weaknesses, and looking at your blind spots as well. And we joked just before off camera, that the funny thing about blind spots is blind spots are blind. You don't see them, right? So you've actually got to be willing
Yeah.
to ask for feedback. And if you're going to ask for feedback, you've got to be willing to do something about it, particularly if you want to be a good leader. The other distinction
Yeah.
I would make with self awareness is, internal self awareness versus external self awareness. There's a researcher in the States by the name of Tasha Eurich, and she's looked over a number of decades at self awareness. And what she says is our internal self awareness is our values, our principles, how we think we want to behave. And external self-awareness is about how we land, how people see us as behaving. And here's the funny thing. When we measure ourselves, we talk about internal self-awareness. That is, what was our intention? And when we measure others, we measure their behavior. What was the outcome?
Yeah.
So it's kind of not an even playing field. And here's a stat that I know off the top of my head, because I think it's kind of funny, is 95% of people, if they're questioned in leadership surveys, will say they're self-aware. 15% actually are. So self-awareness is one of these things we think we're all good at. You know, the other thing I mentioned there was great leaders giving clarity. If you're a leader, you have to bring clarity to situations, particularly in crisis or high stress. You know, I always look back to, and I know you're a fan as well of, who's not, Simon Sinek. You know, I'm a Simon fanboy as well. Simon Sinek's first book, which is actually his best-selling book of all time, was Start with the Why.
Right.
And what he talks about in there is a real leader doesn't command compliance from their people. They explain why something is the way it is or why it needs to be done that way. And then people naturally follow. And that's a great leader. And then looking after our people, I mean, a lot of people would probably put that at the top of their list of great leader traits. And my three aren't in any particular order, but I think when you talk about looking after your people, it means being empathetic, it means listening to your people, it means being responsive to their needs. And, you know, psychological safety comes into this whole discussion as well.
Yeah.
But if you don't maintain high standards while you're doing that, people just walk all over you. So they're going to get away with whatever. And, you know, you've got to maintain those standards no matter who you're with, what you're doing, what the environment, what the audience is. I mean, we've all had those circumstances where, you know, people have high standards, but they change when they're in the boardroom, or they change when they're talking to their manager, and then they're different. So it's got to be consistent across the board when you talk about standards. I would probably give those three. I would say that a great leader is about creating clarity, being self-aware, and also looking after your people and maintaining high standards.
Yeah, I love that part where you mentioned the why we are doing certain things, because when you provide the why, you create an environment whereby you create a common agreement for everybody in the team to work towards to see the vision that you've got as well.
You might recall from Sinek's book, he talks about the fact that 99% of organizations and 99% of leaders, they talk about the what and the how, and then as a side thing, they talk about the why. So if you're running, for example, like I've done a lot of work in contact centers. So if you go out to your contact center staff and you say, we need to take more phone calls, they'll do it, but they're just complying. Whereas if you go out and say, hey, we've got a crisis situation where we've got some customers that really need some help today, we need to lift our game so we can help them, there's a whole different circumstance that prevails.
Yeah, 100%. And the caring part of people, I hear that a lot. I think because of the nature of myself as well, that I can come across being too kind. And like you said, you know, great leaders doesn't mean that you have to be walked over. So standing firm on your standard, standing firm when there needs to be certain pushback, I think is important as looking after. It's also important. So I love that.
It's just got to be consistent. Hey, I mean, that's the trick. If you have a set of standards with your people, but then you relax those standards in how you behave with your leadership or the people above, people lose respect really quickly. It's got to be a set of standards that you follow right through.
Yeah, 100%. So Ash, so why are you so passionate about leadership?
Passion's a very strong word. I probably think of it more as an intense curiosity, but we'll go with passion. You know, I think leadership affects people's lives in a very real way, whether we like it or not. And it's an area that I genuinely enjoy exploring and understanding. And I'm not going to give this this disclaimer every question we talk about, but as I say, I don't necessarily see myself as a great leader. I'm an observationalist, and when you look at leadership, it can have a real impact on people's lives. If you've got we can all think of when we had a poor leader and the impact that had. And we can all think of a great leader. And when you think about this, right, we spend about, assuming we don't do any overtime or any extra work, which is not that realistic, we spend about 36% of our waking hours in a week in the workplace. That's a lot of time for a leader to impact you. And I think that's well worth examination. So that's part of my passion. I think, I think, leadership also has the ability to bring tangible outcomes to not only organizations, but the community, from a political sense, the list goes on. I think leadership is about getting tangible results, and that really fascinates me as well, and gets me interested. But I think an area that we've already spoken a bit about this prior to today, but the most important thing for me is leadership and mental health are very closely connected. As leaders, when we make a decision or we do something, it doesn't end in the workplace. People take that home to the dinner table, take that home to their kids, they take that home to their families. In Australia, mental health issues in the Australian workplace cost us about $11 billion every year. $11 billion.
Wow.
That's in absenteeism, presenteeism, and workers' compensation. And here's another fact for you that I've got to know over time is psychological injury. So if someone experiences a psychological injury at work, they're actually the length of time that they're off work is 5 times longer. So if you just think about that for a sec, physical injury versus psychological injury, the difference is about 5, a factor of 5. So circling back, leadership can have a very positive impact on people's mental health. And I'm extremely passionate about how we can get there and get a better situation.
Yeah. That's great. That is so important. I think a lot of people, a lot of time we hear people say, I actually don't like my job because of XYZ, and then they bring it home, and it's just so common. And I have to say, I was one of the guilty parties. So if you talk to my boys, there were times where they go, Mom, you're so angry after your meeting. So, but we learned
we bring it home. And I think that's an important thing about leadership that everyone should reflect on. And that is that leaders, I've read it on LinkedIn and various other places. Your leader has more impact on your mental health than your doctor. So your leader has more of a say in your mental healthiness or otherwise than your family doctor.
That's crazy.
A pretty incredible thought.
Yeah. That's crazy. So obviously, Ash, so we now call it leadership, right? I still remember when I was earlier on in my career, I look at great leaders that I work with. I kind of go, oh, he's a great leader, but I didn't really think of leadership skill per se. That is something that you can learn. So at what stage of your career did you actually discover that you love to explore leadership, as you put it, or as I put it, when did you discover your passion for leadership?
Passion. You can use the word, it's okay. Look, I think, there wasn't really a light bulb moment. There wasn't a moment where I thought, I want to do reading on leadership and I want to learn about leadership. In fact, when I went to university, I studied business and arts. It was nothing about leadership. But what I noticed very early in my career is you can have the best team, you can have the best practices, you can have the best processes, you can have cool systems, you can have all of that. But quite frankly, if you've got a crap leader, you're still going to get crap outcomes. And that sort of struck me early in my career. I can remember working for some really good leaders, and I can remember working for some poor leaders. And I think the degree to which leadership can impact the outcome of teams fascinated me and started to get me interested. And I started to observe people. I started to read the likes of Sinek and Asher and all those guys, and started to get quite curious about what makes a good leader. I always like, there's a quote from Mark Twain that says, good decisions come from experience, but experience comes from bad decisions. So I've certainly contributed to that research as a leader myself, but I think it's about learning. I mean, I've got this favorite phrase that I use all the time, which is progress over perfection. You won't get it perfect. Progress is what you need. But I think what happened then is I started to develop a curiosity of the sort of connected way in which you see people, leadership, performance, and emotional intelligence. And as you'd know from my my publication on Substack, emotional intelligence fascinates me. And I think emotional intelligence and the interconnection with leadership and life itself really started to get me interested. And then to be quite frank, the final thing I'd say is then, writing helped me sharpen that passion. If I go back to my mate Simon Sinek, he said many years ago that writing helped him understand the things that he then taught to millions. Now, I certainly haven't taught millions of people. Let's not kid ourselves here. And
not yet.
I think there's something in what Sinek says there. He's saying that there's a almost cathartic process that happens. There's a cathartic process that happens when you write. It kind of clarifies what your beliefs are. You can't have vague beliefs and write a piece. You have to be strong and understanding of what you believe. So that's probably a roundabout answer to that question. It was never a big thing. It just sort of happened for me. I noticed Simon's getting in there with a question, mate.
Yeah. Simon, my friend,
biggest regret. We could divert just a fraction for a second.
Yeah. Sure.
It's a good question. There's probably too many to name, Simon, but quite frankly, I wish that I'd understood the strong connection between emotional intelligence and great leadership 20 years ago. It's probably only just starting to come to me now. So my biggest regret is probably, and I guess it's the same, whatever we talk about, that you gather knowledge and experience as life goes on that you wish you could have applied back then. But I think with the connection between leadership and emotional intelligence, or even just career and emotional intelligence, I really wish I'd learnt that stuff 20 or 30 years ago. That's probably my biggest regret. And I do wonder, without getting on my soapbox, I think a lot of business leadership courses would do well to include more of that content. And when I talk about emotional intelligence, I'm not talking about that you're going to work every morning and hug everyone. I mean, quite frankly, I don't like hugs. I don't like people in my personal space. What I'm talking about is the ability to harness the energy that comes from your emotions and understand your body's triggers to act as a better leader with those triggers in mind.
Yeah, I love that, Ash. I remember reading one of your piece of writing a couple of months ago where you wrote about you would usually, was it retire your shoelaces or?
That's
the little
it's commonly known in my office that I am a habitual shoe tire. For those who haven't read the piece, firstly, shame on you. But secondly, I have a nervous habit. When I'm thinking too deeply about something or concerned about something, I untie my shoelaces, pull my socks up, and then tie my shoes again. And on a bad day, I can do it 20, 25 times. But what I eventually have learned is that it's simply an indicator that I can use to actually harness. So when I do it now, it makes me aware that I need to focus on something or resolve something in my mind, and actually triggers me to do that action. So I
Yes.
don't hide it now. I quite often get my feet out in the, well, I don't get my feet out, but I do my my shoelaces. And I've got to agree with Hannah too, just on that point there, that I think emotional Velcro, says Simon, slip-ons. I think emotional intelligence and its role in both leadership and success should be taught in the upper levels of high school. But I won't campaign too hard tonight, Lisa.
Yeah, no, I think I agree. I think emotional intelligence is something that we don't get taught enough, if at all. Like, if I look at my profession, you get taught the technical skills, leadership skills maybe once every 2 years, if you're lucky, and let
And this
alone
is what,
emotional intelligence, right?
apologies, Lisa, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but this
Yeah.
is, and this is unrehearsed. It's not a deliberate plug for your work, but that's exactly what you're doing with your training work, isn't it? Which
Yes,
is looking at taxation professionals and trying to guide them on the development of the people softer skills
100%.
of the profession.
Yeah, 100%. And especially in that very competitive environment, if you look at accounting firms, it's very competitive. Like, but you have to make sure that you keep your standard, to be true to yourself, to be authentic, to be a great leader, that you leave a legacy for the people that's coming up in the future.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's great. So Ash, I want to touch back, go back a little bit. So when we first met on Substack, we spoke for the first time. I think we had the first meeting, introduced each other. Then somehow I sent you my training materials, and I thought I'll just send it to you. But you with a big job, you've got your own family, you write on Substack, and I believe you are also writing a book at the moment.
Yeah.
That night, you spent half an hour or to an hour, reviewed my materials and gave me feedback. And to me, that was just, I remember, I still remember my feedback was, Ash, that's true leader right there. How do you do all that? You've got so many things on your plate.
Oh, look, I don't. The first point I'd make is whenever someone gives you the opportunity to review their work, they're sharing a piece of themselves with you, and you should treat that with respect and as a privilege.
Yep.
So that's sort of a side comment, but it was a privilege to look through your work and see how much of yourself you'd poured into it. And I encourage everyone that if you're ever given the opportunity to give feedback or look at someone's work, then that's a real privilege that they've asked you to do that. But to your question, I'm no different to everyone else in terms of I can get chaotic and struggle with time here and there. But what I try and do to fit all the things in that I do is I try and manage things deliberately and not perfectly.
Yep.
I think as soon as you try and manage your life as to perfection, you're going to fail. Perfection is called perfection because it's almost impossible to get. So I come back to that thing that I always say, which is progress over perfection. So I just start with the non-negotiables and then try and work backwards from there. And I won't go into the details, but there's only a couple of non-negotiables in life, and the first one is looking after yourself. The second one's being available and helping your family as best you can. I mean, I love my kids to bits, and I'll do anything they need. So they're a non-negotiable. If something needs to happen there, it needs to happen.
Yeah.
And then you just fit the other things, squeeze them in around it. So if you start with the non-negotiables, it's like the golf balls in the jar analogy you've probably seen on Facebook or LinkedIn. You put the golf balls in first, then you put the pebbles in, and then it looks like you've got no room left, and then you pour sand in.
Yes.
And when you pour sand in, it fills in all the gaps. So I manage things deliberately, but not perfectly. I think.
And how many hours do you sleep each night?
I'm a good sleeper. Yeah, I love my sleep. It's a late one tonight. It's going to be after 8:30. Like normally I'm in bed before then. But
Yeah.
um, I think the other thing that people have always got to remember is to talk about capacity more than ambition. So what I mean by that is a lot of people go, "Oh, I'm going to do such and such, or I'm going to do whatever," and they put all this planning into what they're going to do, but they don't stop and think about capacity. You've always got to put the capacity bit of the equation in.
Yeah.
And finally, for me, curiosity and wanting to learn more and do more kind of it gives me energy.
Yeah.
I like to do things. You know, you mentioned that I'm currently drafting. It's been about 10 years in the making, but hopefully this year we'll go to print with the way through. That's not a shameless.
Awesome.
Well, it is a shameless plug. But
Yeah.
hopefully by the end of this year, we will release The Way Through, which is a transformative memoir or a transformational memoir. But I find
Awesome.
time for that because I love it. It's the same with writing for Substack. I enjoy it,
Yeah.
and you'll always find time for things you enjoy.
Yeah, 100%. So
Look,
align what you
you
love.
make it
Really.
sound like your life is easy. I mean, you're the same as me. You've got family and commitments and everything else going on.
Well, at the moment, the two boys looking after themselves, having ice cream downstairs, so that makes my life a bit easier. So that at that age where they can entertain themselves, so which is good. But like you said, Ash, when you know what you love doing, then you will put your effort into it. I think that is so true, and so true in a sense around work as well, our career. You know, a lot of people hate their job.
There's a
But
really
if
there's a
you
really
really,
simple way to do it, right? You make a love list.
yeah,
And
yeah,
what I mean by that is if you make a list of the things that you love in your life, that's your answer to what is a non-negotiable. So it might be, as in my case, my wife and my two wonderful young adult kids.
hmm,
Number one. Number two is writing. For some people, it may be faith. For some people, it may be that they love pottery or whatever it may be. You make that
yeah,
list and then you fit everything else around it. Oh,
yeah,
Keith is hitting us up. He because Keith is actually a runner as well. I do actually. I do think a lot, particularly about leadership questions when I'm running. The only challenge I've had in recent times is I haven't been running as much as I was. But I do. Oh, you can't see it behind me because I got the screen up. But I do have the treadmill here at home, so I have recently got into the habit of walking on the treadmill and thinking things over. So I think there's a real connection between activity and the various cortex in your brain that actually activate for problem solving and decision making. And when you actually
mm,
start to get active, you've got obviously your adrenaline pumping, but also your serotonin and cortisol. And so what happens is the activity starts to stimulate the neural pathways and you actually think better.
mm,
That was a
mm.
sideways step, but it was a good question to answer for Keith.
Oh, that's good thing to know. That's good thing to know. Interesting. Okay, cool. So I think we're towards uh the last bit of our live session. The one question I've got for you, Ash, what would you say to someone who knows something needs to change in how they lead, but they don't know where to start? What would you advise them on that?
Um, and this probably circles a little bit back to Simon's question earlier. So if you're a young person who wants to lead but doesn't know how to get there, I think the biggest thing is to start with honesty, self-reflection.
Mm,
Um, if you need to change something, um, you got to be willing to introspectively have a look at what you're doing and what's not working. Um, I try myself. I'm not perfect at this. Progress, not perfection. Um, I try and do a little bit of self-reflection each day, not just on leadership, but on how I've attacked life that day. So if someone is knowing that they've got to change something but doesn't quite know how to get there, and this could apply not just to leadership but to life, self-reflection is the starting point. You've got to look into yourself, and it's not always comfortable either. Like, it can be quite uncomfortable to look inwardly and decide what needs to change and what you need to do. Feedback and self-reflection, though, they only help if you're willing to use it. It's the same as what we said for self-awareness. The other thing is, if someone's got something that they need to change, whether it's a leadership behavior or a life thing, start small. Like, I've forgotten who said it, but a long time ago, someone said, well, how do you eat an elephant? And you eat it one bite at a time. Eating an elephant's no different to eating a mouse. They're not good analogies, actually. Can we scrub those? I'm not suggesting that we eat elephants or mice, but I think you get the point that I'm making.
Yes.
You start small and you take it one step at a time. Multitasking is a myth, right? So if you want to improve yourself, don't do 5 things at once. Just focus on one, get that right, and then move forward. And you don't need to overhaul everything all at once. I think that'd be my thing is self-reflection and change one behavior, one conversation, or one habit, one at a time.
That's great. That's great, Ash. Thank you so much for that. So we've got a couple of minutes for any Q&A from the audience. I know we've been answering along as we go. Just curious, is there any other questions
I'm
that
just excited that we can be heard and seen, Lisa. It was quite the
go
achievement.
live? Yeah, and a little bit of tech issue, but not too bad.
No, it's been great to have those questions start to come in.
Yeah,
this is always
awesome.
the awkward bit, isn't it? You sort of pause for questions and you get silence. I know Hannah must have a good one. Hannah's always got good questions. I'll put her on the spot now. Celebrate the small things. Yeah, I agree.
Yes. So I do have a question.
I make a habit every day of self-reflection and gratitude as well. And what I mean by that is, take a moment to celebrate those small things you've achieved throughout the day. So I tend to agree with Hannah. Sorry, you were going to say, Lisa.
I do have one last question from me. What is the one thing anyone can start doing tomorrow that could make them a better leader? One small thing.
Make a decision. So
it's
funny actually, because I literally started drafting a Substack piece today about moving then beginning, or creating space and then beginning. And what it basically is talking about is leadership isn't a position or a role title or permission that you're given to do something. Leadership is a decision you make within yourself. Can I give you an example, right? It's a really famous example that I always like to go back to. Rosa Parks, right? You remember Rosa Parks was a lady in the 60s in the US at the height of the civil rights movement. She was a coloured lady, so she was very powerless. She was a female in an era that females didn't necessarily have the respect and power that they should have. And she was a coloured lady. It was actually, it wasn't the 60s, it was in the 50s, to be honest. And Rosa Parks was the lady who got on a bus, sat down in a seat, and then refused to give that seat up to a white passenger. She wasn't anyone famous. She wasn't anyone with any power. She was quite powerless, actually.
Yeah.
She just made a decision that things had to stop there, that it was not right, that passengers on the bus were segregated because of their colour or their origin.
Yeah.
And what she did became quite a leadership moment. It actually really gave momentum to the civil rights movement. And she started something without being a leader. So the point I'm making is that the most important thing you can do is decide to be a leader. You don't need a role. You don't need a title. You don't need a team. A leader is someone who, through their actions, has people follow them willingly.
Yes.
And if you make the decision to be a leader, then nothing will hold you back. Don't wait for the title or the job or whatever else. We can all be leaders in our own way.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thanks, Ash. I think there was a question from Hannah. How do you acknowledge your
your
team,
team,
the
the
one
one
you're
you are
leading?
leading? Look, I take. I don't know. It'd be good to get your views on this too, Lisa. But look, in terms of acknowledging the team, I actually don't believe that should be as big a fanfare as what we make it. So what I mean by that is, you go into a lot of workplaces and it's like, oh, we have this program where if 22 people nominate you, you get a gift voucher for $5 and a certificate, and we have a morning tea with cake, and every year all of the people that won one of those goes into a drawer and whatever. And I probably should say at this point that my views don't reflect those of my current or past employers. This is a personal representation. Just acknowledging someone can be just as powerful. So when you ask someone to do something and they do it for you, or they do it well, or they do it quickly, or whatever else, I actually think sometimes we actually need to strip it all back and just go back to saying, thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
I appreciate you. I appreciate what you did. I think sometimes we make these fancy recognition programs and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
When we forget the basics, saying thank you to someone.
Yeah.
Saying please. Saying, hey, I
100%.
appreciate your work.
Yeah. One of the things that I always do, and I love doing it, is, let's say, for example, when my team does something really well, and the senior leadership will be like, well done, Lisa, for doing blah blah. I would always go back to, actually it's a team effort. The team actually have done XYZ, and give them the credit. The credit shouldn't be just coming to me. So it's simple as that. And that's make them happy. That make them feel seen and appreciated. I think that's very important.
It's a sign of a true leader. A truly great leader is someone who doesn't wish to be in the spotlight for work that their team does. A weak leader, or a leader that won't stay the distance, is one that takes the credit for everything the team does and then shifts the blame when
100%.
it arrives. I mean, I think if you're being a great leader, and as I say, I'm not necessarily a great leader, but if you're being a great leader, it's not always the greatest gig, because you should be accountable when something goes wrong.
Yeah.
And you should give the accolades to your team when they do the work. So it's too bad. It's a double-edged sword, but that's how a leader should really work.
Yes. And people will look up to you when there's bad as well, that you stand up for them. So,
well, I think good leaders will not always be liked, but they'll always be respected.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a very clear difference between those two that we sometimes forget. Being respected is different to being liked.
Yeah.
If you can get both of them, that's great. But you can't always do that.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay, awesome. Looks like, thank you, Ash, so much for your time. I think our time is up. I think it's been a great first live session. Um, for our viewers, feel free to, message us directly if you've got any questions, or if you want any topics to be discussed in the future. We're more than happy to do some of these live sessions again. Yeah.
And I was going to say, just a little plug too, is if you enjoy reading our pieces, the biggest compliment you can give us is to send it on to a few friends and share what we've written about, because that helps us sort of grow our readership and gives us a bit of motivation to keep going.
100%.
Thanks, Lisa.
Awesome. Thanks, Ash. Thanks, everybody
Thanks,
who's
guys.
joined.
Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks. Have a good night.